So far, we've discussed a process for writing to become confident in making a kind of mess, concepts, passages, quotes, materials, ideas that you can then use later on in your own essays. What we want to talk about now is how to give shape to that mess, how to take certain pieces and see them for what they are and know where to place them in writing so that our writing has a logic that other readers can use. So let's start here. I think for most of us, we take for granted that paragraphs are just blocks of text. I want to push that a little farther though. I like to think of a paragraph as a unit of measurement, much like I think of a measuring cup or a tape measure. So if a tape measure measures length, a paragraph is going to measure an idea. If I find an essay with 3 paragraphs, I'm going to assume that this paper has 3 ideas. Okay. If I find just a single paragraph, then I should expect to find a single controlling idea. All right. So this is a good place to start. If what you have is just a kind of mess, a big, huge free write that's 3 pages long with no indentations, the first way that I would start to break this into paragraph is to look for my major ideas. And when I find one, this is where I would break the paragraph and create distinct paragraphs. This way my reader knows here's where one idea starts and here's where the next idea builds on the last one. Now, there are lots of different kinds of paragraphs, okay? So very generally, there are introduction paragraphs, there are body paragraphs, there are conclusion paragraphs, but also sometimes we need a transition paragraph, or we've said something really complicated, so we need another paragraph to give it emphasis, maybe in an emotional way, maybe in a logical way, okay? So there are many types of paragraphs, and it's very hard to give you a formula for all of them. But what I would like to do is talk about 3 specific paragraphs, because this will be useful to you as you write this first big essay, essay 1. Again, very generally, an introductory paragraph ought to do 3 basic things. Its purpose is to grab the reader. Okay, so think of your reader as having all kinds of things to do, and you've got to design something that grabs this person out of their normal life and draws them into your specific text. What it should also do is give the rest of your discussion a little bit of context. That could be defining key terms, setting up the situation, giving a little background on your topic, and very traditionally, your introduction should also present the thesis. Okay, we will talk more about introductions, and we will actually question whether introductions have to present a thesis later in the semester. But for now, this is a pretty good description of what your introduction paragraph should look like. Conclusions, of course, wrap up the discussion. But they have to do this in a very specific way. Your reader should feel satisfied, right? That what they've read was really worth their time. That's a very abstract way to describe a conclusion, and I know that that's not satisfying at all to many of you. Again, we're going to look at conclusions more closely later on in the semester, but I would encourage you, if you'd want more information on conclusions, check out the Writer's Toolkit. Okay, now body paragraphs. This is really where we want to spend our time this week. First of all, the definition of a body paragraph is a paragraph that labors to prove or to illustrate your thesis. So when you construct them, you should always have in mind your thesis statement. Now, there's a big fight over what body paragraphs should look like. When I was in high school, this was the Schaefer form, and every single body paragraph had to have 7 sentences. Other professors that you've had at this school may have given you other handouts, the feet method or the Tolman method. In my English 50 class, I teach the axis form. But what I want to share with you is that every reader encountering a body paragraph really wants 3 basic things. We want a controlling idea, so we want to know the main point of this particular paragraph. We want to have support for this idea, and then we want to have some kind of reasoning that gives us the glue between this support and that specific controlling idea, and between this body paragraph and the thesis it's laboring to prove, right? So, and you'll notice if we look back at these structures here, you'll find these 3 basic things. Okay, a controlling idea is very similar to an assertion, support is very similar to examples, and these guiding explanations are the kind of the glue that explanations and significance would give your ideas. So the basic idea of good body paragraph design comes down to 2 basic things: the clarity of your controlling idea and the support that that idea demands for it to work. So you'll probably have a mess of this stuff. Lots of examples, quotes, paraphrases, research, etc. If you have all this, all you need is to define the controlling idea. Sometimes we start with this. We know what this paragraph needs to say, so then we need these things. What's neat is we could say that a thesis really has a similar relationship to an essay as a whole. Just as a controlling idea in a paragraph knits together all of its pieces, all of its support, so a thesis statement in an essay knits together all of the controlling ideas of each body paragraph. This is not a very good definition of a thesis statement, but I think it's a good place to start. And in fact, your job this week in all the reading you're doing is to explore what exactly a thesis statement is. But I'd like for you to start thinking of it in this context.